I want to welcome all of you back to a new Living Life Naturally podcast. And of course, being brought to you from sunny Florida. And today I have two guests with me, and I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves. And I'm super excited to have them because we're going to talk about some really great things that I think that we both of you and myself click in that way. So we have Katy and we have Dr. Michelle. And please introduce yourselves. Tell us a little about yourselves.
Go ahead.
So I'm Dr. Michelle Harden. I'm a board-certified OBGYN. I'm also board-certified in obesity medicine. And I've been practicing, where did the years go? Probably for about 30 years. And I've really, over the last 15 to 18 years, taken a more of an integrative approach to health, and really feel that it's important to have in a relationship between the physician and the patient, and really help us to each hear each other, to help us to become the healthiest version of ourselves. And I work with Katy, who's a clinically certified nutritionist, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm a board-certified clinical nutritionist, and I've been working with Dr. Harden for the last 15 years or so. And we use food as medicine, movement as medicine, and our goal is to help our patients age gracefully and improve their health span as well as their lifespan. And together we've co-authored the book To Finding Healthy. And so we've got a lot of great information in here as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that again a bit later on in the podcast. But I just so appreciate the work that you're doing, because not everybody in the medical field is able to give what you guys are giving in your practice. So I think it's super important that people really grab hold today of these little holistic pillars to health and come away with having a real solid goal for having good health, because prioritizing our health is so important. So can you talk to why it's important for us to prioritize health, and especially when it comes to weight management, which of course we know when we hit midlife gets to be a little bit more difficult to do, but different stages in our lives, our bodies change. So maybe Dr. Michelle, you could talk to that.
Sure. I think that I hear this every day in my practice, that I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to cook. I'm so busy in everything that I do. I work so many hours. And, that's a real struggle here in the United States, because yes, so much of what we do, it's actually kind of, the busier you are, the more important you are. But I think that's the cliche. It's not the truth, okay? But that's the cliche. So I think what we try to impress upon to our patients is it's true. Everything is sucked away from, especially women, because women, we tend to be caregivers. So really what you have to do is you have to make the time. Okay, you're not going to ever find the time, as Katy says. You really have to make the time for your self-health care. And I really feel like it's got to be a conscious effort that everybody's on their own journey in finding that. It's never too late to prioritize your health, but I do think that the earlier that you just make this decision that you are going to give, that gift of health to yourself, it is really going to serve you well as you age. And as a woman goes through, it's just different seasons and different phases of a woman's life. You go from puberty to reproductive years to the perimenopausal years to the menopausal years. And it's just a natural transition of a woman's life. And I'd like Katy to kind of speak a little bit about the culture basis. I mean, different cultures go through the perimenopause and menopause in a totally different way.
Yeah, there's a drastic, if you look at the cultural attitudes around the world, it's very different. In Japan, for example, forgive me for botching this word, but they call it konege, and it really means it's referred to, it's the menopause phase, right? But that translates to renewal or energy, turn of life, right? And here it's really seen as a medical condition that needs treatment. And so when there's more of a cultural acceptance in the Native American tribe, for example, this is a time where women are really seen to hold more spiritual power and wisdom.
Yes.
And you don't really find that here. It's more of a burden and something we need to overcome. And you brought up the word weight. And so we really don't like to focus on weight. We
Right.
really like to focus on our choices and our health habits that make us feel better. For example, I heard somebody say the other day, I exercise for 1 hour so that everything in my life becomes easier. And if you think
Okay.
about it, you've got 24 hours in a day. We can take one of those hours, 30 minutes even, right? I mean, it's not about the quantity, but it's just get moving, right? But we take a little bit of that time and we move. We think better, we're more focused, we have more energy, we're more patient in our interactions with family and friends. We feel better, so we make better health food choices. And it's just this cycle that feeds into itself. So we don't like to focus on weight. We like to focus on our health habits. And that's really motivating in itself, I think.
Right.
And I think the difficult part of that is that, especially as women from a wee age, right, it's all about weight,
Yeah.
okay? It's about how a woman looks from the outside, right? But really, all the energy and everything comes from what's going on in our microscopic environment, right? What comes from the heart and kind of emanates outward. So I think when we look at, teaching the younger generation, okay, how important it is to really feel good and utilize good things coming in and what we project outward, that we are going to have a less of this kind of image on weight, the
Right.
number on the scale, because you could have a very healthy number on the scale and be something we call a skinny fat and have a very unhealthy metabolic environment and have a ton of symptoms and diseases with a very normal weight.
Yeah. Yeah, I can so relate to that. I think that most of us, because we're brought up here in the States, it's all diet culture.
Right.
And I really hate using that word diet whenever I'm talking to people, because it's not, they automatically think of, oh, this is a heavy duty weight loss thing, which it isn't at all. So I've had to kind of change my verbiage, because I do not like that diet culture feeling, which we're so used to here in the US, and it's, permeating throughout Europe. I know when I go back and visit, but and it's not just, as you say, it's our culture here. You see skinny people on TV, and that's what you think you're supposed to
Right.
be. And for some of us, that's just an impossible goal to ever reach. My body makeup, I'm never going to be, I've got skinny legs, but like you're talking about, my stomach leaves a lot to be desired. Some of that I realize is as we get to midlife, menopause, but there are so many little things that we can do. So let's talk about some of those pillars of health, getting away even from the nutritional aspect at the moment. You've mentioned one, Katy, you talked about exercise. So what are some of the other, what I call pillars of health that you talk to your patients about?
I want to say that there is this misconception that when I do things naturally, or when I hear the word lifestyle, that those aren't effective. And, for example, if you're living a very high stress life and you're wearing your busyness as a badge of honor, and you're moving here and you're moving there and you're not taking care of yourself, you're living in a chronic state of stress, right?
Yes.
So your cortisol is going to be chronically elevated. The way your body metabolizes cortisol, we share those same precursors with our hormone production. So if your body is under stress, it's going to prioritize the production of that cortisol over the production of your natural hormones. So they compete for each other. So stress management is a huge thing. And that really just comes from taking time. So when we exercise, we lower our cortisol. When we eat in a balanced way, we manage our blood sugar. We also manage our cortisol. When we stay hydrated, we manage our cortisol. So all of these things, it's the whole picture together that really helps to have a large impact on the way that we feel and our hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were talking to a woman who's in perimenopause and she's suddenly got this unusual weight distribution, most of it in the belly, how do you help people to work on that kind of thing?
Well, so that's like a lifetime journey, right?
Yes.
So it seems like it happens overnight, but it really doesn't. It's really a transition because the belly is really insulin. And insulin has an effect. Again, cortisol has an effect on your insulin. It also does play a role because I think the perimenopausal period, from a hormone perspective, it changes from a day-to-day basis, and those hormones are really changing based on how that woman is living her life. So it's kind of like you read a lot about, it's a symphony. It's about the whole picture. So just little changes. I think the most important thing in the perimenopausal period that you can do is really trying to just move a little bit slower, be a little bit more mindful in everything you do, because if you do that, you may, and you're going to hear this, we're going to come back to the same thing. Probably the most powerful pill there is, or the most powerful pillow that you can use, is your movement.
Yeah.
It sprinkles your brain with dopamine, with growth hormone releasing hormone. It lowers the cortisol, like we've talked about. All of those things are going to have an effect on that little pillow in our belly that we may develop. So I think, again, it's the little things that you do on a consistent basis, because so many people, many of my patients say, well, I exercise every day, I eat healthy, and I still can't lose this. And we're going to get back to the word, I still can't lose this weight, or I can't lose my tummy, right? But it's really about the consistency. They haven't been doing it for a year. They've been doing it for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And it feels like such a life of deprivation, right? Probably because they've been on this so-called diet, the paleo diet or the keto diet or the semi-glutide or whatever it is. But it's not changing the mindset that I am going to change how I live. So I would say, try to be more mindful of the things that you're doing, get your movement in, take care of yourself and your people, right? Because community is so important. Put your work into perspective with everything else, which is probably the hardest thing for all of us to do. And then try to find a balance with self-compassion. Okay, because every day it's kind of like, well, Katy says this a lot, every day is good, just some days are better than others. And I think when you take that attitude, you could have a little bit more compassion for yourself. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I think the other thing too is that healthy looks different on every single body.
right.
And we hear the word fat and we just go, oh, we kind of shiver. But fat has a protective mechanism. Women tend to have more body fat, and this is important for conception and even nursing and breastfeeding your baby. You need higher levels of fat. When and think about it, the fat protects our organs. I mean, it's so important. But the danger is when that fat is in that midsection, because that central adipose tissue really surrounds our organs, and fat itself is an endocrine organ and puts out 25 different inflammatory hormones. So when we can lower specifically that belly fat, we feel more energized, we are less inflamed. So when we really look at that midsection, that really comes from what Dr. Harden said, is our fluctuation in our blood sugar. And so when we're eating a lot, and it's really bad for us here in the United States because we put sugar in our chicken broth. We put sugar in our canned beans. It's in our almond milk. It's in all these
Yeah.
healthy foods. And we're making what we think are healthy choices, but we're just eating sugar all day long. So our blood sugar is constantly elevated. And when we have this constant surplus of sugar, our body just stores, conserves, and survives. We're not burning fat and building muscle because we've just got this excess, right? So it really comes from a balance in your blood sugar. And again, those go back to the pillars. Are you hydrated? Are you getting good sleep? Because all of these things can contribute to the fluctuations in our blood sugar. Are you moving? Are you eating a diet high in plants and fruits and vegetables, right? So it's the things that we know, but the way that it comes together is so valuable. So you can't really take one component and that's all you do.
Right.
You want to focus on the whole picture. And that's can be hard to do, which is why we wrote the book, because we want people to be inspired and motivated and understand the science behind these things, you know? So for example, eating phytoestrogens, for example, these are plant chemicals that compete with your body's natural estrogen. So there's some theory that this can contribute to hormone-related cancers like breast cancer and ovarian cancer. But if you look at the Asian culture, they eat a diet high in soy. These are phytoestrogens, and they have the lowest rates of these types of cancers. And so there's theory that these are actually protective because they can compete with the stronger estrogens and provide a protective benefit. So are you eating your flax seeds? Are you eating your chickpeas? Are you eating a diet that's high in fiber? And if you look at the average fiber intake, it's about, I mean, it's pathetic.
Yes,
It's like
it is
maybe
pathetic.
10 grams of fiber in a day. We should be eating 35 grams of fiber in a day or more. So I think internally we know what we need to do, but applying these things in a way, exactly as Dr. Harden said, in a consistent way. We do something, we're enthusiastic, we get a trainer, we eat chicken and vegetables for a week, and we're starving and we're miserable and we're unhappy, and then we think that nothing works. So it's about balance and compassion for yourself and doing it in a way that's fun, that is maintainable and enjoyable for the long term.
I mean, really, Lynn, you look at the blue zones, right? You just remind me of that because they don't, I mean, they live in their community. They eat a variety of food. Okay. But their food is off the earth. Their food is in season. So, you know, really what we have is I always tell my patients, if you want to be healthy, you have to live counterculture, right? And that's what the blue zone people do is they don't live in the culture that we live. Like Katy said, we have all these hidden sugars. So even though you think you may be eating healthy every day, your body is seeing this elevated sugar, which is maintaining that insulin level, which is helping you to store fat, which is leading to the physical characteristics that we see here in the United States and in some places in Europe that have Americanized. But if you go to the places that live, like we talked about with the blue zone, you don't see that. And I really think the culprit is the hidden sugars and the amount of stress that leads to an elevated glucose.
But what she says here is also really key because she says you have to live counterculture. We Americans already live very isolated. I mean, we don't have to leave our home for anything. We can have our groceries delivered, our food delivered, our mail shows up at our doorstep, anything we need we can get on Amazon. And then when we go out and we have to eat different than our friends because we're trying to eat more plants, we have to go out and exercise every day and the people around us don't do that. We can feel further isolated. So finding that community that is living the way you're living is crucial to being able to elevate your health journey. It's really so important.
And you should have fun along the way because you only have one life to live, right? So
right. I was reminded as you talked about some of these things that my daughter and her family had just come back from a trip to Scotland and Ireland. And yes, I was very envious. But they came back and my daughter was like, I just can't believe how different the food tastes over there and how much more regulation they have with their foods. I mean, I've known it from being in England, but, you know, it's a piece that's missing. And so we really have to become our own detectives. Yes, and advocates. Food labels are so very confusing here in the
Yeah,
States, and it's easy for them to put one healthy piece of food in the box and they could say this is healthy.
exactly. But I think if you're eating a diet that is the majority of it are plants, right? I mean,
Right,
go to the store, buy a basket full of organic produce and throw together what you have. You can make your Buddha bowls and you can make your smoothies and you can snack on your fruits and vegetables. Let nature be your fast food. And then you don't have to worry as much about your labels because your avocado should be an avocado, right? It's
right.
the danger comes when you're trying to eat a chip made out of an avocado, right? I mean, that's not how it goes. So
Yeah, that's so very true.
but I think we don't really the problem is we have eaten all this fast food, or not even fast food, but this processed food, right? There's a scientist saying, how can I make this the perfect combination of fat, sodium, and sugar so that it's addictive? If you give somebody a potato chip, or even a child, right? You give a child a potato chip, they're not going to want to eat a carrot. It doesn't taste good. It's not
Mhm.
doing anything to their dopamine. It can't compete with that potato chip. So it's hard to make that transition from processed foods to more plant-based, but the more you eat that way, the more your body craves those foods. And whenever I say this to our patients, they just roll their eyes at me until one day they come in and they're like, you were right. I went back to my favorite restaurant. I ordered my favorite meal and I was physically sick. I don't know why I eat that way or ever ate that way, and I don't want to do it again. So the body takes time, but it is so intelligent. If you give the body what it needs, it can heal.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there was one tip that you could give to our listeners, I'll give you one each. And what would it be?
So I'm going to say, I think the secret sauce, okay, is consistency in how you determine to live your life and this is two, sorry, I got to put two, a consistent prioritization of the gratitude and time to take care of your health. Okay. Because it is a gift.
It is, it's a privilege.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right. It is a gift.
Not a burden.
Right. And no one is going to do it for you. Okay. So you really have to value this beautiful body that we've all been given, and especially as you age. Okay. People say, well, my wrinkles and my breasts are sagging and da 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 da. But look at all the things your body can do. Okay. So it would be to be consistent in prioritizing the gift of your health.
We tend to act like our health is important, but we speak that way, but our behaviors oftentimes
Mm,
don't align with
mm.
that. It's at the bottom of the barrel. And I think if there were two things, I'm going to say what she said is consistency in whatever you do. If it's hydration, be consistent. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water a day. If it's focusing on more plants, do that consistently, because nothing in the short term is going to have a drastic impact. And I say this a lot, but if you've heard us talk anywhere, you're going to hear me say this, but it's so important to realize that the small things that you do really compound over time, right? So if a pilot is flying from San Antonio, Texas to Houston, Texas, and it's like what?
A degree.
Yeah, 1 degree shift. It's like a 45-minute flight or something. It's a 1 degree shift. Um, they're going to make it. But if they're flying from here to Maui and they change that flight path by 1 degree, they're going to miss the island completely. So the longer you stay consistent with your choices, the more likely you are to change your health trajectory. And the second thing is movement. This will change your life. If you can just say, if I don't do anything else, I will get up and I will start my day with movement. Whatever, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's a 10-minute walk, maybe that turns into a 20-minute walk, maybe that turns into 2 bouts of 20 minutes. But if you can start your day with movement, your energy is better, your mood is better, you're more prepared for the day, you'll make better food choices. And over time, you will see your body transform. And the more you move, the more you want to move. And then that becomes a really big part of who you are. You'll find that you're planning your day around your movement. You're planning your vacations around your movement. Your whole life changes. And if you don't, I mean, nothing is more valuable than your health. That may be arguable, but if you don't have health, how can you do anything? Money doesn't matter. What you have doesn't matter if you don't have the health to enjoy it. So we could go on forever, which is why I wrote the book.
So tell us a little bit more about your book.
So it's, you want to go?
Yeah, you go.
Okay. So it's 40 chapters and we've got 40 habits. You can do that one habit a week over 40 weeks. You can do one a month over 40 months. But our goal is to really, we really take that one habit, we go the science over it, we inspire you, and then we give you an action change. And our goal is just to have people change the way they look and value their health, and to have actionable strategies to apply to make changes in their health journey, and to know they're not alone, because there are a lot of resources in there and there are many other people who are working on what you're trying to work on.
And just like what you're doing with your podcast, from our book, we created a virtual lifestyle program that really, it's a 12-week lifestyle program where every day you start the day with these messages and the science behind how your body works. And then we try to create a community where people are together via a chat box, and they always have access to nutritional advice with someone like Katy that can kind of help them, there's so much information out here, and everyone is educated on how, and everyone's doing their part, which I think is really important. Having so many people, trying to kind of assimilate all this is difficult. So when you have people who are professionals in this area, it helps to give, not only motivation, but the science behind it, which makes a little bit more sense.
And we try to provide it in a way that's simple, easy to understand, but also really inspiring. There's a lot of inspiration in that book. So I think you can pick it up from anywhere, read any chapter to start with, because it's 437 pages. It can be a little overwhelming. You could just start anywhere, and I think you'll have one thing that you'll be focused on for the day.
And is it just available on Amazon, or is it in the stores as well?
For the moment, it's on Amazon. Yeah.
And let us see it again.
Yeah. It's called To Finding Healthy. And it's on the cover, it's got DNA made out of fruits and vegetables, which we like because we know that the food we eat has an effect on how our genes are expressed.
Yeah.
So our lifestyle and our choices matter.
Yes. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. I'll put your links in the show notes below, and I actually look forward to reading your book, and you're doing great work. I appreciate what you're doing and how you're integrating all of these things for people.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lynn, for
Yeah.
giving us a voice.
Yeah, we
appreciate
appreciate
it.
you having us, and we appreciate the work that
Yes.
you're doing as well.
Keep it up.
Thanks.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.